All right, y'all. Joe Walker here, Yonah Mountain Farms. It is Friday, July 25th, about 10 o'clock in the morning, and I am about to move the flurd. So we've combined the cattle, the sheep, and the goats together. And where I'm standing now is basically the creek bank is beyond this wall of brush. We have a tremendous amount of kudzu, and there's going to be a lot going on in this video. I just want to kind of explain real quick what exactly we're going to do and basically how I came to this conclusion. So you can see behind me, this is where basically just the cattle and the sheep have gone, and you know, they did really well. One of the main issues we're dealing with here is running them back to shade. Well, this morning, I'm trying to figure out, you know, where am I going to move these guys? It's time to move them. I got the cattle, sheep, and goats all together, all the way up here by the barn. And right now, it's not too bad. It's kind of overcast, so actually, I could just run them without shade right now. But I know that's going to clear up, and it's going to be blazing hot. You know, I mean, that can change within minutes. So this morning, as I was just trying to figure out where we're going next with the whole flurd, I was just standing in the pasture and closed my eyes and basically just seeking wisdom from God, because I think that's important. I think it's important that we seek Him in everything we do. And I think this work that we're doing is very important, and God wants involvement in that. So as I was doing that, just kind of praying and seeking God's wisdom, I remembered that one of our followers on YouTube and cat lover mentioned on a previous video where shade was an issue about running really long, narrow paddocks, and I think I commented something about it was too much netting or whatnot, but I can't remember. But anyway, since we've kind of pulled a lot of netting from elsewhere, and I'm running our egg layers in a smaller 3-netting paddock, I think we got enough netting to just run a really narrow paddock, and I think that's going to give us more trampling effect of what we want for a daily move. Because basically I moved them in this paddock up here yesterday, and I didn't get near the impact that I wanted. They left way too many standing briars, which I could leave them in there for another day, which would be fine for the goats and the sheep, but the cows do not want to eat the briars, and I really don't want to just force them to eat them. I'm fine if they trample them, but they're not going to trample them if they don't have to. So here in this paddock, we have basically much of the same. So there's a lot of briars, a lot of dog fennel. There's plenty of grass as well. There's plenty of clover. There's just a ton of variety. Back behind me, you know, you'll see basically the wall of kudzu. And let's actually walk down here. So anyhow, you know, thanks to our follower Cat Lover, and thanks to God for bringing this up to me this morning as I was focusing on this. We are going to try to run a real narrow lane, the full 850 feet. So it's basically 850 feet from the creek bank all the way up towards the other side. And I'm only going to run this lane, maybe, if I had to guess, it's going to be about 30 feet wide. So that's going to basically force the animals as they're grazing back and forth. They're going to eat what they want to eat, and it's going to force the cows to essentially trample the rest. So one thing I want to explain in this video is our fence, so our perimeter fence. We essentially just I have one single strand of hot wire running all the way around, and this has worked out fantastic. So right here, and I didn't tighten it all the way up. So manufacturers will tell you to tighten it up to 250 pounds pressure. Well, we didn't do that because I want the flexibility. I want to be able to raise and lower the fence. So make sure you guys can see that. So basically, what this allows me to do is I can put it lower for when the cattle are here, and then I can raise it and run our electric netting under it. So as you can see right here, my wire is right down the middle. To the right, I was able to run the netting further back, so that allows us to clear this brush on each side of the wire, so that we don't have to weed eat it or whatnot. So that's worked out great. Well, this time what we're going to do is let me get under here. So the cows, oh, and there's some black walnuts. We're going to do something cool with those here before long. I'll show you guys probably on my next video actually. But anyway, let me turn this around. So right here we're going to run the netting out through all this. I had to just stomp down a thing. I'm going to stomp down a little path, and this is a pretty steep bank. So I'm going to tie my netting up on one of these limbs, and it's going to hang out over the creek. And so what that's going to allow is the goats and the sheep to be able to get all the way back in here. Now the cows won't, because even though this wire is pretty high and the cows could easily go under it, the cows won't go under it. But the goats and the sheep, they'll slide right under this. So let's walk through this. This is one side, and it's gonna run from the creek basically all the way up. So you can see they've already grazed the left side, and they're gonna have the right side now. And then basically you can see my wire right here. And we're going to come back in. This is where we really get into the kudzu. So we're going to come back in with the fence right here. I kind of already walked through this and stomped it down. And I'll have to stomp it down a little bit more. But we'll basically do the same thing with the netting over here. I'm going to tie it off to this vine right here. So that's going to, like I said, that's going to allow the goats and the sheep to get back here and just really beat the heck out of all this. They won't go in the water, so I don't even have to worry about that. Now the cows would go in the water, but luckily I got that high tensile strand running up there. The goats and the sheep will not go into the water. So, and they won't even try to hit this. The goats will try to hit this steep bank to some extent, but we've done this before and they just don't go in the water. So anyway, let me get it all set up, and then I'll shoot another video once it's all done and show you where we're at. Thanks. All right, I'm back. A lot hotter and a lot sweatier than before, but I've had to make a few modifications, but they're kind of irrelevant to this video. So let me show y'all what we got real quick. So here's our single strand high tensile hot wire. Using my trusty shovel right here. Cut a little notch in it so it'll catch that wire, just to keep it above the netting here. And we'll go back through the kudzu patch. And so, as you can see, we got the netting suspended. It is over the water a little bit. Now there is the possibility that something could go through right there, but I'm not that concerned about it. Most likely, if something were to go through there, it would be a lamb. And if a lamb goes through there, it's not going to go very far from mom. So that's the one side, and over here, yeah, I'd say it's about 30 feet wide, this paddock. So over here we got the other side, and it's pretty much the same thing. So we got our high tensile running high. Had to use a few of our tread-in posts that we use for the single strand poly braid to kind of brace this netting in particular spots. And then here, I'm not going to walk back down there, but I think you can see it enough. We have the post tied up with some baling twine on the trees, and again, it's overhanging the creek a little bit. So that will give the goats and the sheep access to everything on the right side of this poly braid. I'm sorry, on the right side of this high tensile without having to run a fence to the creek. And then this is just gonna really tear this up. So all this really heavy brush right here is just gonna get knocked down and basically be like this, you know, like what I showed you guys earlier. So that way we're not weed eating. I mean, we would never spray. It's obvious we don't spray. Just look at the pasture. Definitely no chemicals going on this pasture, but now we don't even have to spray fence lines, which is a pretty common practice. Even in a lot of regenerative settings, people will spray their fence lines. What we would typically do is weed eat, so we don't even have to weed eat. And when we run it like this now, at our very first lease, we actually followed the manufacturer's directions. You know, ran the fencing 5 strands, had like 2 of them hot, and we fenced out the creek. But it made it real difficult to keep the stuff from the creek bank from grounding out our wire, or just from, you know, weakening the amount of power, the amount of electricity going through the wire. So I don't think it's necessary. We obviously want to keep animals out of the creek, so we don't want the cows going into the creek, but we want to be able to manage it. So the single strand strung up loosely, you do have to run a lot of posts, but it also allows you to sidestep it, so you can actually move the wire, you know, 3 to 5 feet to allow the cattle to graze, you know, on what would be the other side of it. So that's real helpful as far as not having to, you know, weed eat, or just to be able to manage the brush on the fence line. But anyhow, I'm gonna drive up here and get the cattle and sheep moved into here, and we'll see what happens to all this. We'll give them a day. Honestly, I think even though we did run this thing pretty narrow, I think with the amount, our current stocking density, this is still going to be 2 or 3 days worth of forage. But we'll check on it tomorrow. Anyhow, thanks for watching. See y'all on the next one. All right, Joe Walker here. It is Tuesday, August 5th, about 4:15, and it's been like, you know, I don't know, 10 days or so since I shot that video where we went into the creek. But honestly, I'm just shooting this in case I didn't. I'm not sure if I actually shot a follow-up video. I know I took some pictures, but anyhow, this is where we're at. So this is the same spot. Here is where I had run the fence down to the creek. I ended up pulling that up, but this is, you know, this is the wire. I think I showed you guys where I had taken the basically, I think I showed you guys the hot wire, the single strand of high tensile, and how all this was kudzu, basically a massive kudzu section. Well, actually, here we go. We're really getting into what was the kudzu. But yeah, and then here's where right here is where I cut it into the creek on the kudzu side. So actually, I think I've done it twice since then. So on the original video that I just started editing today, I think we had come in about right here somewhere. It may have been right here. I'm not exactly sure. But anyway, this is what we got. So essentially, the animals had this for one day and one day only, and then they basically, I've been running them out this way. I used this little patch of shade to run them back to, and then you know, they're almost about 700 feet that way, and we're finishing up this lane. But I just wanted to really just document. So this is the creek bank. I don't know if you remember when we were standing at the hot wire, and actually I hadn't even posted that video, so I will just add this on to the end of it. And just to show you what the sheep and the goats, like I was saying, the cattle wouldn't have gone past this wire, but the sheep and the goats sure did, and they tore up the kudzu. There was a good bit of kudzu coming out into the pasture, and the cattle, goats, and sheep got all of that. So just a quick follow-up video. Thanks for watching.